Hello and welcome to the Runners World podcast with me, Rick Pearson.
And me, Ben Hobson.
Today we're speaking with fitness guru, Joe Holder. Tell us all about him, Ben.
Oh, I like the guru status.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah. So Joe is a global Nike trainer, sort of amongst many other things. But I first met him, sort of fact-checked, correction. I say in the chat with him, I met him in 2017 and started talking about the launch of a Nike shoe. It's 2015.
Oh,
so
wow.
if any sneakerheads listening, they'll be like, what? That shoe didn't come out in 2017. This guy's full of rubbish. So it's 2015 I first met him. So Joe's like a global trainer for Nike, and that's kind of like probably where people have like touched upon what he does from that global scale. But he's very good at sharing information about well-being and questions a lot of stuff and wants people to basically think about what they're doing from a movement point of view, from a health point of view, how to best look after themselves, how to be better people. That's kind of his overarching like message, like life plan, whatever he wants to put out. So it was really great. He was in London for something. I think he came over for a wedding actually.
Oh, lovely.
So it was nice to sort of grab a chance to sit down with him and have a chat about kind of like what he does, why he does it, all those sorts of things. And obviously running, because he's a big runner.
Yeah.
And he fits it into his life when he's not training for something specifically, but then now he's training for Copenhagen Half and Chicago, I think he says. So lots of running chat as well.
Excellent.
As well as
that's good for us, isn't it?
Overarching, be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So much to look forward to.
So much.
Hey, look, I've got a bit of science for you.
Love it.
The 3 best paces for your speed work. Good practical stuff, this. Good practical
Okay,
tips.
go on then.
So here's what you want to go for. You want to be doing 1 mile pace, and that's you want to be running 200s at that speed. So 200 meter repeats at a sort of mile pace. Then
how many repeats?
This maybe not as many as you think.
Okay.
So this is a sort of second part of this. Is that it's about staying in touch with these faster speeds. You'll get 98% of the benefit you might gain from any more precise and physiologically determined paces. So actually, just keeping in touch with these things. You don't have to go mad.
Gotcha. So it's not sort of like I've got to do 20 times 200.
No, nothing wrong with that if you want to. But you actually might be able to do like half that number and get most of the benefits.
But keep it very precise in terms of that mile pace.
Mile pace. So pretty punchy. 200 metres sort of time for
that.
Then 5k pace. Run. That's your 800s for 5k pace.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, we don't. If you want to do 4 of those, that's fine. If you want to do 8 of those, that's great. But keeping in touch with the speed.
So So this is you've got to do as many reps as you can, keeping the speed consistent.
I think that's probably generally good advice, is that you want to try and get quality reps out rather than if you're clinging on to a rep.
So the moment it starts to fade, just quit, just stop it.
I think that's probably sound advice. Is that if you start falling off the pace, then actually you might be better off cutting the session there and then getting fitter.
Yeah.
And trying to hit those.
Yeah, okay. I like this.
Time. And then the final one is 10k pace, and you want to run that's sort of like 1600. It's almost like miles of that pace. Again, up to you how many you want to do. If you're feeling very adventurous, you might want to do 5, but you might want to do 2 or 3.
5 mile repeats at 10k pace. That'd be quite hard.
It'd be pretty hard. Yeah. It's a sort of classic 10k training program, that isn't it? But I think just keeping in touch with those paces is gonna get you a long way. And maybe it's a sort of simple way of thinking about speed work in terms of I want to be hitting those 3 paces at some point during my training program.
Nice, I like that. I might do that.
Hey, there you go.
How's your running?
Running's gone all right. I was in Ibiza.
Of course you was.
Not on a running retreat.
Oh,
it was. But it's I think it's probably got a similar landscape to somewhere like Mallorca, so it's quite hilly.
Yeah.
And I've discovered a few trails there. So I was out. It was probably around about 4 times in 7 days. It wasn't too bad.
That's some good holiday running.
It's pretty good holiday running. Always in the evening, children in bed. But it was great, mate. Yeah, it was like very, very rugged. No one was really there.
Yeah.
Some lovely views. So it's all building to this to the 10 miler on the 15th of October, the Cabbage Patch. I think it is actually going to be a real slog to break the hour. But I'm still gonna.
Oh, I know you'll try.
I'm gonna give it a go, and I think I'm not going to be a million miles away. But I think I'm starting to think when I actually work out what it means. It's kind of like 18. I think it's like 18:30 pace is sort of for 5k.
Yeah.
So it's putting together like 3 of those and then another kilometre. I couldn't do that tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I'd be that close. I could certainly run that for 5K, but I'm just starting to think that I'm running out of road a little bit with it. But it's still. But I've got fitter, and let's see what I can do. Basically,
I think you're underestimating that race day power.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a secret locker.
Yeah,
it gets opened up.
You're always a bit better.
It's like a second stomach when it's like pudding. It's like a pudding stomach. It's like a race day stomach. Just suddenly you just get there and you go, oh, hold on.
Hang on. I've got a vest and some gels.
I can do this. My shorts are short. I can go.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with that. I just I think I may be pushing that theory to the
absolute
limit.
Yeah. All right, good.
You've got an ultra coming up. I'm calling it an ultra.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I have a race that's ever so slightly over the length of a marathon.
Yeah,
I have. I'm having a mild panic though because it's less than 3 weeks away, and I did a classic got a little niggle.
Yeah.
As I was
great
on a run, and an Achilles one. They're notoriously fun to get.
Yeah.
So I've got a slight Achilles thing, but as I was, I just asked all of my Run as Well colleagues, because we're essentially doctors, and we're not. But they all just said, "Can you hop on it?" So I hopped on my foot, didn't hurt. So it's proven that it shouldn't. It's fine.
Fine then.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm fine. I mean, it hurts to touch it, but I can hop on a leg, so it's fine.
I think that you're going to be okay. You're going to have to do quite an extreme taper.
It's going to be now until the race day taper, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. But apart from that, running's been going good.
Great.
So,
good.
I'll be fine.
Well, looking forward to more daring do in the weeks ahead.
Can he hop for longer? Find out next week.
I hopped twice this week.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
My goodness.
Stay tuned. All right, should we get Joe Holder on then?
Yeah, let's talk to our guest of the week.
Guest of the week, here in the studio. Guest of the week, sometimes on the phone. Could be an athlete, could be a physio, or a complete unknown.
Joe Holder, welcome to the Run as Well podcast.
Ben, thanks for having me, man. Been a long time.
Yeah. I think we first met 2017.
Yeah.
In New York. It was the launch of the, I'm going to get it, Lunar Epic. Do you remember that shoe?
That was an underrated shoe. I actually like that shoe a lot.
With the kind of mid collar on it.
Yeah, it was fire.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a good time. $45,000, man. RIP.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was a cool project.
Let's talk about running.
Let's go. I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it right now. I'm training.
Because this is, of all the things, you're a busy guy, of all the things that you do and the training that you focus on and all that sort of stuff, running is a constant, right? Like it's something that you lean on heavily whenever you need to recalibrate or train for something specific. So what is it about running?
Yeah, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with running. I mean, basically, I was a 3-sport athlete growing up: football, basketball, track. Track was the first sport. My dad was my first coach. I was a junior Olympian out of South Orange, New Jersey. So I always had an affinity for running, but being highly competitive growing up, so, everybody knows sometimes that wears on you. But when I dealt with football injuries in college, one of the first times I came back, I played at Penn. So Penn, we had a good team for Ivy League team, have some buddies in the American Football League. But as you know, Penn Relays is a big event there. So the track is just, has a lore. But I remember after I had hurt my ankle and I had missed a year, I finally started running again. And I stepped out on the track and I did a walk run, for the first time in a very long time. And from that moment on, I said I would never take running for granted. And I just fell in love with it again from there. And, the ability now in my adult life with the work that I'm doing, it kind of acts as a guidepost and a stone. So whether it's just recreationally traveling to different cities, being able to see it on my feet, go and explore, just got a great run in this morning at Hyde Park, or for something that adds as a kind of framework for my training, and seeing different cities through races and things like that, and being able to apply a lot of the theories and stuff that I've learned over the years to see how it impacts me, especially with everything else that I do. So yeah, running is it's fun.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I was wondering if you had the sense of joy from it, because you are an athlete who used to train, and you still train, you're a very prescribed guy. What you do is kind of for a benefit and a whole sort of scale of what you're up to. And we always talk about the joy of running and just going for a run, and whether or not it's like not part of a training plan and it's kind of just there for your well-being. Is that still something that you go into?
Yeah, I mean, how I look at life, you know, I call it the sport of life. Is you know, I think a lot of people take it running too seriously, especially in America. Other people take it not seriously enough. You know, I'm always a fan of, you know, Kipchoge's kind of view on it. If making America a little bit of more of a running country, people find joy in it. It's funny you bring it up because I was thinking about it the other day. I was out in the Cotswolds for a wedding, and you know, I just sat in a garden by my hotel, if you want to call it that. You know, the inns that are out there, and the sun was out, feet in the grass type of thing. And you know, everybody now has, you know, had their morning routine, and I just thought, you know, everybody's become so dehumanized. They just check it off the list, whether it's, you know, getting morning sun or whether it's going for a run. They want to be able to say, oh, that I did it, so I must be a better human for it, instead of actually enjoying the thing that they're doing. Yeah. And if we're constantly just looking towards that next thing, or wanting to overanalyze the run and the splits and, you know, the recovery scores and all that, like, sometimes it might remove us from who we are. And I don't want that. Like I did that. My whole childhood was calibrated against trying to be the best, whether I was in school, whether I was in sport. And now as an adult, it's like being able to do it on my own terms and getting better, like hold myself accountable, but still finding, I'm still finding the joy in it for sure. And I think that's a key part of adulthood, is like finding the joy in our movement, our bodies, and not wanting to like beat up the flesh from this very, you know, Western Puritan thought process.
Yeah. And I think that people really lean into like the social media, the Stravas, the data, and all that sort of side of it. And I think that as you say, like proving yourself, like it kind of, they want to put out this thing. I did it. And it's sort of like, your reasonings aren't like healthy anymore.
Yeah.
You're leaning into this, like, I've got to show others that I'm doing something, whereas it's like, no, you need to bring this back to why you're doing it.
Yeah, and push yourself. Like, all right, so there's a Greek word called, there's a really good random book. It's called Hyperemployment, and within it, it's like an art book, but within it, they talk about essentially, and they're prescient about this, about like how wearables essentially were creating free labor. And a lot of our data that we're providing is just free labor for these companies to essentially make money, which is fine because they also still give us a service. Yeah. But the concept of like, it's a Greek concept of pharmakon, where something is both kind of the cure and the poison. Right. And everything that's happening with these apps and that type of thing. But also on the other end of it, it's, why not push yourself to see what you can do? And if you want to document it, for sure, but still remember that there's a worth, I think, in pushing to be your best. And if we're able to do that through running and through training, I think it could show you how far that you could actually go. But you know, don't do it just to tell a story. Everybody just tells stories now, right? And what happens, right? You're training for a race to tell a story, trying to be accountable or whatever. And a lot of people just don't hit their goals, but they come up with another story to make it sound good. Yeah. Like, my thing is like, hold yourself accountable, have fun doing it, and be real with what you did or didn't, and then just seek to continue to improve, you know? Yeah. And that's what sports taught me early. It's like, you either did or you didn't. That doesn't mean you're a failure, but in sports, yeah, you can't play the game. Like, you either got it, you either won, or you didn't. So, you know, that's how I look at it. It's, you know, I'm going to hold myself accountable, really push myself. But as recreational runners too, I think we could be honest that there's a bigger window for our goals. Yeah. And yeah, have fun.
And you're training now, you said, for races.
You know, I call it like training camp. I'm training for Copenhagen half, Chicago full, probably get a couple other races in there. And I really just want to push it. Like, I just want to try atypical kind of training styles, very, you know, like Zatopek type energy, you know, and just I just look at it like people who back in the day, even like whatever, Captain Barclays in the 1900s, where he just did the walking and the long walking mixed with sprints type of thing. And looking back on, you know, the origins of fartlek training, and even before that, it's like I just want to have fun testing atypical strategies with this. And I think that's just kind of what's missing in the game. Like, everybody is kind of too regimented instead of exploring the edges.
There's a good book you should read. It's called The Easy Interval Method.
Yeah.
This guy, a Dutch champion, former Dutch champion called Klaus Luck.
I gotta check it.
And his whole thing is that every run should have intervals in it, but you're not talking threshold. Mm-hmm. You're talking like, you know, 80% or whatever it is, and it's from 200s all through to like 2K, and you can structure it around being like 6 1K repeats with some 400s in there and sort of all this sort of stuff. But the premise being that you can do it the next day, so you're not shaking the intervals, and that's not your big session of the week, and you've got to rest hard after. It's kind of like, and it's just building that aerobic base, but like fluctuating the. Yeah,
I was like undulating a little bit, but is it that thought process that you allude to is basically especially for somebody like me, right? Like I was a repeated sprint athlete. I played football. I was a bigger guy. Like I probably had high twitch. It's like you don't want to totally just throw away your ability to utilize those higher twitch muscle fibers and still stay fast. And with the interval work too, as what you're talking about, it's like I call that like medium intensity steady state intervals. You know what I mean? And one of the workouts that I've been doing is like 10 minutes at a little bit below LT, a small break, then go 7 minutes, small break, 5 minutes, repeat that times 2. And you still feel fresh after the workout. You like bookend it with like 20 minutes of lower intensity based work. And yeah, stuff like that I think is just missing. Like everybody knows they should do their base runs or the recovery runs or their long runs, maybe throwing some hills. And, there's all the debates about the different types of interval work and stuff like that. But some things sound crazy before they're eventually proven right. And at the end of the day, for most of us, we're just, at least for me, I'm just trying to experiment in real time. And I find that fun. Like that's what gets me going. It's like human experimentation in real time.
You do a lot of that outside of running as well, don't you? Like food and supplements and how you approach just making yourself as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
How did you get into that like mindscape of like, right, I need to, make sure that I'm, getting X hundred milligrams of this every single day. Why is that important to me? And then researching it.
I've always been a curious guy. With my work, whether that was starting, the Ocho system in college, whether that was my work with Nike and dealing with runners, whether that's consulting work, whatever. I also just like American history, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I was essentially reading this book called The Poisoner in Chief, which is about Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA and post World War II. This all makes sense in a second. But like post World War II, like they really got into psychedelics and seeing how that would impact the human mind.
Got it.
Yeah. But what was super crazy about it, like the only silver lining from this book, because what stuff they were doing was wild, was they just took such meticulous notes about everything they were doing. And I was just, somebody that's on the road a lot or doing a lot of different things, sometimes they could fall by the wayside, but the best kind of personal human experimentation is on your body. Like you wake up every day and it's crazy stuff is happening immediately, right? It's like, melatonin is being reduced. Your cortisol is now increasing. If you get a light in your eye, it goes into a central clock, but your body also has peripheral clocks. You now know when to wake up. You pick up something, you have essentially pressure pads in your fingers that let you know subconsciously about how much pressure to actually hold that thing. You're able to, you start to move your body. You start to, there's certain things that you start to eat that have an impact, that not just what you eat, the timing of what you eat. Your body's in a constant state of discovery, right? Or it just has an innate knowledge that it knows what to do. But if you spend more time discovering that, it's like, how can you change that for best results? And that's with behaviors, it's like the biggest drugs to me are exercise, meal timing, and sleep. And then I want to think about how do I regulate those rhythms the most, and then what are the things that I'm doing that will have the biggest benefit, not because for the sake of productivity or being at work better, but I just think everybody deserves kind of to feel good. And I don't know, for me, I just find it genuinely exciting. It's like stumbling upon a study that people just haven't really paid attention to, and being able to implement that into my life and seeing the benefits, understanding supplements, understanding food, understanding lifestyle practices, then looking at that on a bigger level for whatever more public health based work. Like there's such a lack of wellness education, I think. Everybody studies so many other things, but the base level is about how to improve the human body and how that can improve public health. Like that's just my lifelong mission.
I think there's a huge, as you say, like people will go and invest a whole lot of time and effort and money into running and learning how to run in a certain way, but are they understanding the biometrics? Are they understanding the sort of like the physiological and all the sort of elements of what can tie into running and make it better for you in terms of, do you know what, I'm burning I know people get it with like carbs. Obviously I need like fuel and this is how it's going to work, but like the nervous system, like how to best treat it and make it sort of so you're not putting that under so much duress and all these sorts of things. So I think it's like fascinating that, you know, to have some magnesium, like sort of
yeah, it's like simple stuff. It's like, you know, one of my favorite studies was they put, it was either 5 or 10K runners on a like low inflammation promoting diet. It was basically a Mediterranean diet, and they saw their timing improve. Like, that's crazy. Like, what you eat, like, it can be a performance enhancer. And, you know, people over the years have looked at, you know, now people understand beet juice and that's impact on blood and nitric oxide. People understand whatever watermelon and citrulline, and that is a potent possible vasodilator. But then going to the source material and even, you know, seeing different things is like, after you run for harder efforts, your gut becomes essentially more, you know, leaky, for lack of a better term. It's just, you know, the permeability of the gut increases, which changes the manner in which toxins kind of go through your digestive system. So you should probably be a little bit more careful about what you eat after runs and certain things like that, or the timing of the runs, or, you know, the ability for, you know, recovery, certain recovery modalities. You know, Hutchinson and his, you know, he covers a lot of it with his column about, you know, everybody used to be cold, now everybody, utilization of heat and the stuff, and how that can, you know, improve performance. But I don't know, it's just fun. It's just fun to me. And, you know, I was able to apply a lot of that methodology to the clients that I've worked with, and especially in the lay population, and seeing their running improve. But yeah, self-experimentation, you know, it just gets me going.
Yeah, right. I think, but that's lots of people just don't think about it, right? You get like told, have your carbs, have your protein, crack on.
But like, why would you not think about that? Not even just for running, but for like life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
eat that, don't eat that. Like, make the decision based on like an informed place.
Yeah. Because that's something you do every day. I know everybody talks about working out, but like, you're eating every day multiple times. Why would you not take into account that at a foundational chemistry level, that's the building blocks for your body? So understanding for you personally what works, what doesn't work, and simple things like this, right? Is like, I recently, because I also have I write a column for GQ. I recently interviewed a Dr. Sachin Panda, that he does a lot on circadian rhythms, and we were talking, and one of the things I was talking to him about was essentially, why do people overlook the relative impact that really the most important thing that you're just trying to do to your body is improve its rhythms, right? Because let's take, for example, running or working out. Mm-hmm. If working out was just generally healthy, or health promoting, let's say, it wouldn't matter what time you worked out, right? Or wouldn't matter what time you ate if just food was blanket healthy. But depending upon the time you work out, the time that you eat, the time that you get fucking light exposure, whatever, the timing, it could actually have a negative impact. And something so simple, that just as simple as that, is that specific timing of certain external cues can totally push off the train or improve the train of your internal rhythms. Yeah. And everybody wants all these overly complicated thought processes, which is wild to me. But there's just kind of like I call it the cult of health and wellness right now. It's that I need this to do this way, or it won't be successful, or I got to follow this person or this person. I just think we get back to the basics, but we need to improve the overall culture of it being important in our life. And, you know, it's sad to see. I really do believe that everybody should feel good or better.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about exercise snacks.
Yeah, let's do it. That one is from research. Yes.
Because that's a good one.
Yeah, thank you. I got to get back heavy into that.
Well, give us the overview. What is exercise snacks?
Yeah, exercise snacks. So in 2013, maybe 14, out of college, I was working for this company called Healthware. I actually worked in food, but that's a whole other discussion. But, you know, I was still always in the research, because I studied sociology with the concentration of health and medicine in college, and concentrated in psychology and marketing. So I was always just fascinated by application of research for purposes. And there's a study where they looked at diabetic patients or pre-diabetic patients, and they looked at what happened if you broke up your workouts into essentially snacks instead of one long period. If they had, I believe it was either a 15 or 20 minute session at the start and then the end of the day, would that have different outcomes than one long continuous session? So essentially, how does the body respond to intermittent exercise? exercise snacking, and they saw that it improved health outcomes a little bit better, specifically health outcomes, which is a little bit different than fitness, although some later research has shown that. So I was always intrigued by, why is everybody always talking about exercise for fitness and performance and not just health? And can that help the general population? So it's in my back of my head. But you got to remember, as you know, in New York, you came, is that this was at the peak of the intense exercise revolution. Like, if you weren't in a group class getting your butt kicked, nothing mattered. Like, people weren't ready to hear about, hey guys, how about you just exercise twice a day for 15 minutes? Like, what? Like, I want my berries. I want my Soul Cycle. I want to be CrossFit. Like, this was at the peak of the craze in New York. So I was like, all right, let me just, focus elsewhere for now. But I had written a column about it, introducing it maybe in 2018 or 19. But then when COVID happened, the pandemic happened, everything shut down. Yeah. And but my client, Naomi Campbell, still wanted to train. So I was like, all right, I would just train her online through Zoom every day. Yeah. And then one day, out of nowhere, she just goes, we should go on Instagram Live. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, like we should do our workout sessions on Instagram Live. And I was like, all right. I did not suggest it at all. And then every day for months, we just did a daily workout session. And this is where then I made Exercise Snacks Go Live, which is just showing people, like, look, here are the simple routines. Here's the research behind it. Let's make movement a movement. Let's really just do the base so your health improves. And then from there, you go on your fitness and performance journey. And, it's a philosophy, literally, that just wants to make movement a movement. I think and help create a preventative healthcare ecosystem, because that really is what it is like these small foundational movements will go a very long way, and it won't be overwhelming for a lot of people that I think have been overlooked. And the research continues to come out and show it. It's just, a recent study was just released about how 4 minutes of essentially rushing during your day for people that don't work out, they called it a vigorous intermittent lifestyle physical activity. It's called VILPA. And they saw for some 30 seconds to a minute, but a sweet spot of about 4 minutes, it reduced certain incidences of cancer, of 10 plus cancers by about 20+%. And in frail adults, they've seen the ability for 2 sessions a day of 5 minutes to improve, to reduce the likelihood of falls, which for a lot of people as they get older is a leading cause of death. And they, and it continues to add up. So my thing really is like, how can we set up these communities or these thought processes that help people literally just small bouts of movement a day? It doesn't even always have to be formalized. And I do think it could help be a start of a little bit of preventative healthcare ecosystem in the United States and the world, which is definitely the long-term goal.
Do you think this is a direct reflection of actually the worrying state that broader health across the globe is kind of in? Like, the fact is that there's a degree of, guys, we've got to get people moving. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not really like a thing anymore. Like, is that a worry?
It's a good question. I do think it is, but I also look at it as and this is a whole debate with like the drugs, right? The obesity drugs and stuff. It's like, yes, we need to get people moving, but then people also need to eat better, do this, do that. Are people willing to do that? And my question is that I think it is important because everything comes back to energy, right? It's not just your energy expenditure. It's then the energy that you take in, and then can your body better essentially metabolize that energy? And I think movement is one of those potent drugs that help you do that. And I think we also need to get people moving so they have a better understanding of their body and health consciousness in general. But on the other end of it, movement has always been presented as a magic bullet, which it is not the case. It's just part of the overall prescription. But individuals have to take responsibility, while at the same time, we do have to be aware of the societal structures that may create barriers to entry. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I call it like it is if you're middle class, lower middle class and above, and you're not taking care of your health, why not? Look yourself in the mirror, and unless you have a debilitating health condition, it's on you. Now, there are a lot of excuses for people who are lower class or have socioeconomic conditions that make it very difficult. But until the culture kind of trickles down and people who have the means and the time unless they start to really take care of themselves, we won't have any positive changes. And I really do think the revolution begins with the middle class. And I'm just tired of people always having an excuse when you have no excuse. Like, you've been born if you're a middle class in a Western country, you've been born into basically the gateway to heaven. Yeah. Like, you're in purgatory. You just got to make the decision to step up. Like, you weren't born into hell. Like, some people cannot get out of their situations. And this thought process where people just put it to the side, or they say, oh, it doesn't matter. It does matter, because there's essentially an invisible tax that we all have to pay for, whether that's in a shorter life or increased taxes or the increased strain on literally our societies. It's like, come on, step up. And I think like running is one of the easiest ways to do that. Walk, runs, whatever. Go for a walk, brisk walk. So yeah, it's like, how do we onboard people into a better human condition where they actually care?
Let's talk about the Old Man Running Club.
Yeah, OMRC. Shout out.
Because, you're not an old guy. No. Let's get, because, I feel like, I'm in my 40s now. Yeah, so I'm kind of like, I'm slowly in. Yeah. And this things hurt more now. Yeah. Like, that's it. But, why the Old Man Running Club? Why the name? What's the strategy?
I mean, running clubs in New York are like a thing. Like, they're huge.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so many of them. And, the two that I run with are Old Man Run Club and Brooklyn Track Club. And, OMRC was this joke that, one of my friends, Eugene Tong and Dao Yi, Chow and Rio kind of came up with and ran with it. But like in the beginning, when I was training them for marathons through Nike work, we just always had this like Old Man Run Club joke, because it's just like something always hurt on all of them, and including me. I have old football injuries, so it's just kind of leaning into that energy, which is like, there's always a joke once you start to get into your later 20s, early 30s, which at the end of the day isn't even old. It's like, everything starts to fall apart.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So it's just tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Let's talk about your training and what you do and sort of with the clients. And you've got some very famous clients. You mentioned Naomi Campbell, and you work a lot with these Victoria's Secrets models.
Yeah. So that was kind of like, I like to say I'm on kind of my next album. Like 2013 and 2019 or even 20, probably before COVID hit, it was like, I was that guy. Like, I was training everybody. I was, the Victoria's Secret models definitely got me juice. I was training, Bella Hadid, Romy Streed, Georgia Fowler, Sarah Sampaio, Sadie Newman, Megan Williams, like all the big ones, basically. Yeah. Naomi Campbell was one of my clients. Still is when she's in New York. I was training Virgil, R.I.P., Ricardo Tisci, Matthew Williams, Heron Preston, was just everyone. And a lot of that, got me where I am today. But, I like to say I can't be, as an athlete, as you start to get older, it's like, of course, a younger crop comes in, but you also have new goals. It's like, the Kobe that wore 24 is totally different than the Kobe that wore 8. And, that's what I like to say. I'm kind of like transitioning a little bit, where I have a little bit more of a bigger public health mission, and I still do the training and keep a book of clients, and of course do the Nike work and event-based work. But I'm starting to explore a little bit personal goals a little bit more, and really trying to work on a few of my next concepts that help spread the message of health and wellness to more of a public lens, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's like, I've definitely released a few good albums, but probably working on the fourth one. Right? I like to say right now is a little bit harder. But yeah, to your point, it's like training camp right now. I'm working on my own training. I'm trying to feel good. I'm focusing around runs. I was early to the recovery game. Nobody's really talking about that. Or back in the day when I first started, now everybody is, and quantified self type energy. So right now, what I'm really intrigued with my running, and I've brought on a partner for this, Splendid Spoon, and some others, is really about relative energy deficiency, and the thought process that. And the Olympics have been doing a lot of research on this, and it's going to be talked about more. It's basically people aren't eating enough. You know, people, and is there a way to see, especially if you need to also maintain weight, how do you approach food as you're training from a nourishing standpoint and understanding what you're putting into your body that will both improve your performance and make you feel good? Because unfortunately right now, especially for women and also men, it's that a lot of people are hiding kind of highly sensitive eating styles that border on disorders behind the fact that they can say that they're training. Or on the other side of it, people just aren't taking into account what you put into your body after you run will have an impact. You know, a lot of people, especially runners, like to drink and gorge after they're done running, which has a time and a place. But when we're looking at to improve both health, fitness, and performance, I'm really trying to augment and start to record within my training the different ways to eat and the impact that they have on the body for best results, and trying to go fast. So after I, do the half marathon, that's Copenhagen's coming up September 17th. Then there's Chicago, but then I want to go back down. It's like I want to run a fast mile. Like I want to run sub 430 type mile. So my goal basically is like hit this half marathon, go whatever sub 125, go sub 3 on the at Chicago, and then work back down to then go sub 430 on a mile, because what everybody's talking about now I already did that. Like everybody, have you heard this like hybrid athlete trend that everybody's kind of talking about? Which is funny to me because I'm like, that's just being an athlete. It's like you should be a little bit strong. You still should be able to run.
It's just repackaged.
Yeah, because everybody's trying to sell something. So my thing was like, no offense, but like I already been on that. Now what I'm more intrigued in is like not necessarily a hybrid athlete, but I haven't come up with a term for it yet, but it's like how quickly can you transition when you introduce new stimuli, and can you make your let's call it like the adaptable athlete. It's like, all right, did the marathon, now how quickly can I go to being a fast miler, or how quickly can I go to getting stronger, doing that type of thing, and basically being able to adapt the body very quickly through lifestyle and training practices is like, that's what I'm focused on through the end of the year.
How would you do that then? Because in my head immediately I go, right, you're talking endurance and all this sort of like level of stuff, and then you're going to go very much down into sort of like high end, like just output for a mile. Yeah. So you're going to think like, is it going to be, because you're going to have such a good aerobic fitness from all the running, and you're going to go gym, just get power? Is that like...
Yeah, I mean, you mean for the mile?
For the mile, yeah.
So basically the thought process for the mile is like, yeah, since I have such a good aerobic base, that should mean what? That should mean, one, my weight will be down, and that should also mean that my recovery should be good. I should recover quicker. Then for the mile, you do two things, right? It's like take a small break after the marathon, but then you get strong again. So you got to lift weights, and even if it's 1-2 sets, get used to just max.
But heavy. Yeah.
Then from there, really, there's two things, right? It's like do heavy. And then in the beginning, you do eccentric loading, which basically means it doesn't have to be heavy, but you go slower on the way down. But you do two things. It'll help improve structural integrity. It actually will help improve flexibility if you do it right. And then from there, you then start to introduce more power-based work and plyometric-based work. And that will likely improve running economy and some force production-based stuff. And then for the running training, like that's just patience and pain.
That's just 200 meter repeats.
Yeah, that's like hard 4s, 200 meter repeats, 8s, still have the base there, but that one is really where you just got to be like, I'm just going to fall in love with the pain here. But yeah, it'll be a fun journey, because for me, I don't like to thin up too much. I like to still keep some aesthetics, got to look good for the photos, but we'll see.
But you have more, but that's, I mean, not necessarily something that you've gone out to do, but you get more involved in like campaigns for like like doing modeling stuff and all those sorts of things.
It's funny. Yeah, I've been in Nike campaigns. I've been in Calvin Klein campaigns. I've been in J. Crew stuff. So the ability to photograph is important. I like to say I'm just like fashion adjacent. Like I've been very blessed to be in campaigns. It's crazy to me thinking back on it. With I'm not even assigned to a modeling agency or anything like that. But yeah, sometimes I do have shoots, so sometimes it is important for me to still keep a little bit of weight on. But
it's funny how it works out.
Yeah, I mean, my past 10 years or 8 to 10 years have been crazy, and I'm excited to keep building and developing, but a lot of it is just, continued expansion, I think, in the thought leadership and event-based work and seeing how far this can go.
And you've got like the on Netflix as well. There's like that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, so Nike what I think Nike is doing is very smart. I mean, basically, it's like they're look at it as distribution deals, right? Is that can you go through the Netflix route, the Strava route, different type of thing. So, you know, for the Nike Training Club, because I'm also, you know, a Nike global trainer. Yeah, the workouts are available on Netflix, especially workouts for runners. It's specifically for them, which is cool. And it's cool to see people getting involved and being able to spread that message, and, you know, Nike investing and meeting people where they are as they start to continue to put out more new work. But yeah, did that. I had the master class, all these things. So it's like I've had blue chip cosigns very early in my career. Now it's, you know, sometimes I wake up in a hotel room and think about it. It's like, yo, you really got to continue to figure out what you're going to do next. And it's a gift, but, you know, I don't want to be, it's hard if you look at an artist or an athlete, it's very hard actually to have a long career.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to this right now. So I'm just continuously trying to figure out, you know, again, like the proverbial next step forward, what that looks like, but also how can I help more people and continue to stay relevant, I guess.
And like what you put your name to too, you must get offers for like stuff just pops up like, oh, come and do this with us and and you got to be like, well, what's that bringing?
Yeah, you know, there's the two most important words you learn are yes and no. And then on what I have the privilege now on is I could say yes to fewer things, no to more. But then when the ideas do come in, a lot of it is like me being responsible for the creative now, or me being able to go out and pitch and getting sign-ons. So it's like I get to control the narrative a bit more, but so definitely a little bit more pressure, and you have to be more concerted with the effort. And now I've taken the mindset now of, you know, being a little bit quieter and more methodical, and, you know, when I choose to speak or release something, there's a purpose to it. And that's just a different way of working. And, you know, I like to say I'm just trying to build my sovereign state, because as you know, it's like the proliferation of everything has happened so fast. You know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it was really just about getting stuff out. Now it's how do you really build your sovereign state? It's like, what is Joe Holder's version of Runner's World? What's that consolidated information where then people can then utilize that for best results? So that's what I'm focused on figuring out.
Well, good luck.
Yeah. Sheesh.
I don't think there's much more to talk. I mean, we could. This is one of them ones that could go on exponentially forever and ever and ever. And I mean, I'm always fascinated about the training side of stuff, and you're very good at sharing on social of like when you discover a study that you think is fascinating and stuff. So, if anyone wants to engage and look at your story, where's the best places for people?
Come peep it at Joe Holder. Also exercisesnacks.world or joeholder.us. Pull up. I mean, the training stuff is fascinating. You know, I've been super intrigued by like high intensity aerobic intervals right now. So that's making the brunt of a lot of my training right now. And just going to keep pushing and see how far all this takes me.
Nice. Joe, thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
So that brings us to the end of this week's Runner's World podcast. A huge thanks to our guest, Joe Holder, and to you, of course, for listening.
Thank you again for subscribing. Oh, what? You don't subscribe? Well, guess what? Now you can. Just click subscribe on wherever you're listening to this podcast, and that means you won't miss a single episode, which is the best thing you can do. You can also just Google Runner's World UK podcast, and you'll find it, and then you can subscribe. Just subscribe. Subscribe to the magazine. Just do that too. Subscribe. Thanks again. You'll hear from us next week. Bye-bye.